Hello, this is JT Halden, Halden Marine Service, Watermaker Specialist. This is going to be part of a continuing series on understanding Watermakers first. We're not here to sell you Watermakers, we're first here to get you to understand Watermakers, how they work, the basics, the information that all adds up to find out if our Watermaker's in good working condition and how to test for everything like that. And the first thing we're going to do is start looking at TDS, or parts per million. You'll hear both the term TDS, which is total dissolved solids, or ppm, parts per million. Usually everybody will say parts per million. And we measure the water, and I've got a little water sample set up here. This is nothing more than tap water. And what we do, this is a standard TDS meter. Okay, parts per million as well. It says TDS and parts per million on it. I just want to get a quick test to see what the parts per million are in that water. I don't know if you can see it from there, Miss Stacy. It is 50, looks like about 55, 59 parts per million. Okay, so that would be standard water. If you were to take and taste this water, obviously it'll taste normal. Now, one of the things we want to do to start understanding how to read these things and what differences it makes is we're going to start adding a little sea salt. And what I like to do, anytime you're going to test your Watermaker, you're going to make some salt. It's usually impossible to get good quality offshore salt water, and that's really where our Watermakers are operating. One of my biggest rules is all Watermakers, if you have just basic pre-filters, your 5 and 20 type pleated filters, these are offshore pieces of equipment. They're not to be run in the ICWs, inland waters, anywhere you have runoff, silt. The filters that you use on most Watermakers that are the pleated filters are basic for offshore work. Once you start having extra input from your water you're floating in, like the ICW for example, changes the world altogether. These filters are great offshore. As soon as you bring them inshore, we have a whole different input, and usually it takes different types of filter or media filters to protect your Watermaker. So offshore pieces of equipment, we're just going to work on that theory throughout these series of understanding Watermakers. Okay, once again, just basic tap water. Okay, if I put the handheld test meter in there, we got basically 50-60 parts per million. This is instant ocean. If you're going to test your Watermaker on the hard, at the dock, or an area where the water is just nasty, you want to get instant ocean. It is what it says, instant ocean. Creates ideal marine aquarium. This is aquarium salt. So this is really the closest you're going to get to offshore water. What you'll also purchase, now you don't have to get the big 5-gallon bucket, we just do a lot of it. They sell it in much smaller packages to make 4 or 5 gallons, 10 gallons. You'll also want to get a hydrometer, Instant Ocean makes. Can we see that, Misty? All right. This hydrometer is going to be very important because offshore, here in Fort Lauderdale, on the east coast of the United States, offshore we have some of the saltiest water in the world with the Gulf Stream cutting through. We can be anywhere from 32 to 36,000 parts per million of salt water. Okay, we're measuring 50 in this, so you can see the huge difference. What I want to show is the slight bit of salt will make huge differences in your readings on either your handheld test meter or even electronic controls if systems have that. Okay, so once again, 50 parts per million. All I'm going to do, and it tastes perfectly fresh, it's going to take a very small amount of salts. Something about that, that's probably a lot more. We'll stir it in there really good. Now I clean this spoon real good so Miss Stacy can taste this. Let's give it just a moment to stir up. This basically, I'm trying to show you what small amount of salt it will take to set your Watermaker off. Would you like to try it, Miss Stacy? Just tell me if that's salty or not. Tastes like regular water, doesn't it? Exactly. Let's take a look at now what the TDS meter reads. Let's stir it up one more time and get the salt. Take just a moment to totally dissolve. This is a small amount, a little bit more than a quart of water. Now let's see what we got. Man, can you see that, Miss Stacy? I don't know if you can pull in on that. I'm 850 parts per million on that little tip of salt. That's not much at all. The industry standard for product water coming out of any Watermaker, whether it's a Spectre or anybody else's brand, is under 500. So this would not even pass through the Watermaker. If you had an automated system, it would reject this water. This is your product water going in your tank. It would reject it and send it overboard. And yet you can taste this, and you, as Miss Stacy said, it tastes like perfectly good water. This is why understanding how your TDS meter works and your automated system works, just because it tastes good doesn't mean your Watermaker is working well. Even a bad membrane will taste good. You'll get to it. Usually, I find that you don't start tasting salt at all in the water until you're in about the 1,000 to 1,200 parts per million range, which is way over the top. We always want to be under 500 parts per million with our water. So you see what little bit of salt makes all the difference in the world. We went from 50 to 850. It was an 800 parts per million increase. Doesn't take much. That O-ring in the membrane end caps, membrane safe, that's all it'll take. You'll be up to 800 and you'll be rejecting. Never trust your water, product water, by just pure taste. At this level of salts right here, you drink this water for long enough, it's salty. Can give you other health issues as well. Kidneys are really happy with high salt concentrated water. Never taste, always the meter. Okay? Let's start with that one. Thank you.